misses an enemy approaching, and when he's distracted for just a moment, he earns a blade to the belly for his mistake. Jenna finishes off the goblin responsible just a moment too late, and comes forward to find their youngest member collapsed and on the brink of death. The fate of the entire party now hangs in the balance of Zid's rapidly depleting life. Jenna starts to freak out, wondering if she should pull the sword from his wound or if that would only make it worse. Meanwhile, Hansen hasn't noticed his comrade has fallen and begs him to switch in to give him a break from battering and defending with nothing but a shield. Luckily, Han is there just in time to take over for Hansen and orders him to a different passageway so that he can take on the worst of the mob himself. He doesn't tell Hansen the truth about Zid's condition because that would only make things worse. So when Ziza comes to death only seconds later, Hansen has no idea that his friend has just died on the ground beside them. Yikes! Han forces Jenna to stop thinking about the death and commands her to keep helping them fight. With only minutes to go, every second is critical, and the adrenaline and fear of the final push is making them gain skills just as quickly as they lose lives. There is a risk of losing more lives, probably due to his exhaustion. It's Hansen who next gets hit. Now that he's bleeding, he is also frightened, and stops fighting to beg their leader Han to save him. The entire might of the goblin horde is upon him while the kid just screams for his life. But Han knows how to play this game, and he knows what it takes to survive. So he doesn't blink an eye, summoning both Jenna and Aaron to his side, instead of saving their wounded newbie. In the time it takes them to regroup, Hansen is gone, and with him goes the strategic advantage of the alleyway. Without enough people to defend the entrances, the remaining trio has to keep moving. They approach a dead end, where Han orders Jenna to climb up and help the rest of the team get to high ground. Just as she's making the ascent, the goblins find them again, leaving Han and Aaron to do the best they can to fend them off. Jenna is up. She helps haunt the balcony, no problem, but Aaron takes a deep wound to his leg while trying to climb up. So Han is forced to jump down again and kill the goblin responsible. Only he doesn't stop there. In a horrific but necessary move, Han slices Aaron's leg clean off. While they didn't have time to pull out the weapon, his choice puts Aaron in critical condition. I sure hope their valiant leader knows what he's doing. Now cornered on the balcony, there's nowhere else to run. Han and Jenna are left to stab and kick at the goblins attempting to climb up at them. It almost looks like they'll make it, but at the 30-second mark, disaster strikes again when Han is stabbed deep in his side, so deep that the goblin responsible manages to tear out half his insides with it. Jenna is hit next, and now every member of the party is bleeding and in critical state as the goblins gather from all sides. Han finally slumps to his knees, contemplating his death. He is angry with himself for losing teammates, angry for only making it to the 5th floor when, as a player himself, he was a master at the game. A miraculous final moment of heroism. Han uses his anger to give the goblins one last fight. Han Seojin, Loki, famous master of masters, cannot die on the 5th floor. He will not die in a place like this. Overcome with rage, Han picks up the berserk skill while he is slicing through goblins left and right, making a bloody mess on the battlefield, until the moment his sword breaks, but even that won't stop him. Not in berserk mode. Han rushes forward with nothing but his fists and a broken sword, ready to take on every enemy in the world if he has to, and just at that moment the timer stops, and it couldn't have come at a better time. A goblin's claws are inches from his face. The monster is only seconds away from taking the whole party. When the heroes return to the lobby, they level up and have their wounds immediately healed. But the exhaustion and trauma of the battles they faced weigh heavy. Jenna starts hysterically laughing as her legs collapse beneath her. Jenna asks if it will always be that hard in the future, but Han tells her that this level is unique and designed to make it almost impossible to survive if even one of them dies. But not these guys. They've beaten the odds no matter the cost. Yet the reminder of that cost and the price they paid hits hard. When Daika comes running over, congratulating them on their victory, and asking about his friends Zid and Hansen, Han tells him the truth, fast and plainly. The kid just stands there, shocked. As the exhausted remnants of their party limp off to their quarters to rest, Han is alone. He reminds himself that death is going to become more and more frequent as they climb the tower. There is no room for sentiment in a game like this. Han picks himself up, collapsing on his bed. He starts to wonder how it's possible that he's now acquired both the composure and berserk skills, which have the opposite functions of allowing him to hold on to and temporarily let go of his sanity, respectively. It's likely related to his dual nature as both a master and a hero, which both help and hinder him throughout his experience. After a well-earned rest, Han returns to the training ring the next day to find Jenna already up and practicing. He asks what made her start so early, and she only yells back that she doesn't want to die. I guess after the horror we experienced yesterday, every second is valuable, he thinks. Jenna also gained a lot of skills in their final few minutes on floor 5. Add to the fact that she has talent and puts in effort, and it seems like she might be more than an equal to Han at this stage. Aaron, on the other hand, didn't gain a single skill. It can't have been easy watching his 2 trainees die on the battlefield, but that has to be a bad sign, honestly. Han gets more and more worried about this guy with every chapter. While Aaron is struggling to advance, Han is nearly ready to move up to 2 stars since he's about to reach the maximum level for a 1-star hero while he's working out as usual. Jenna has a moment of weakness and comes over to feel his abs. Han, as usual, ruins the moment and gives her a sharp hit over the head, wondering how anyone can act normal and joke around after everything they endured the day before. Meanwhile, the other summoned heroes are being just as useless as usual. They only do the bare minimum of training, putting in just enough effort to avoid being synthesized, but not enough to actually improve. Aaron turns up late to training, burdened by the guilt of his trainees' deaths. But before he can start spiraling, Han tells him that the only reason Hansen and Zid died is because they were weak. All he can do is get stronger. When the Master logs back in, he creates a whole new party with Jenna and Han, as usual, but with 3 new members they've never met before, who seem like they're only going to weigh them down. Instead of a floor, they enter a daily dungeon on a super easy level, where all they really have to do is acquire some materials. Han and Jenna leave the newbies to collect raw materials while they go hunting, as they've just about got sick of eating only potatoes. While Jenna is tracking down deer, Han goes after a different objective, seeking out the Queen of the Forest, a rare monster that only appears in forest dungeons. Han doesn't waste a moment, leaping into the fray to kill the surrounding deer before standing face to face with the Queen herself, who looks pretty mad that he just killed all her boyfriends. But the monster is still no challenge for Han, who returns to the party holding her head and a sword full of blood. Metal as hell, he gives the head to Jenna for her to cheerfully stab away at the skull, carving out the precious horn, which is the bit they really need. The attribute stone they gained from the Queen's death is low grade, but it will help them to advance as heroes and craft better items. When they arrive back at the waiting room, they're welcomed as heroes for a whole different reason, for bringing meat to camp. But Moody Han doesn't allow himself to sit down and feast like everybody else. Instead, he takes Jenna away from the fun and enters them into another daily dungeon known as Cinderella Plateau. I respect the grind, but can these 2 sit down for 1 meal? Han is after more attribute stones, so they seek out the magical beast of the plateau, a giant wolf, which is easy for 2 heroes of their skill level in dungeons like these. Jenna seems to be in her element, remembering her days as a hunter-gatherer living in a remote forest in the real world. She makes a comment saying that she wished the Master would never come, which gets Han thinking. Maybe his underlings at Nilheim felt the same way. Maybe he wasn't the beloved Master of Masters to them, but just some tyrant dictator who forced them to do his bidding. A few days later, a party is put together for floor 6, this time with Han, Jenna, Aaron, and the last member of the trio, Daika. The universe seems to be cutting them some slack. After the horror of floor 5, floor 6 is an exploration quest. It means they need to sneak their way through and pick their enemies off without alerting a horde. It's a challenge in itself, but at least it's not an all-out bloodbath, not if they do it right. They make pretty light work of the first goblins they find, and with the first stage cleared, Han races off to get a glimpse of the enemies waiting for them up ahead. What will happen next? Find out next time by staying tuned for our future recaps. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more great recaps.